Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Bullpen Blues. As always, I'm your co-host, Kevin Dixon, joined by our good buddy, David Esser. David, how we doing?
Yo, go Sixers, man.
Go Sixers, man.
Big game one win.
Huge win.
Yeah. Phillies, on the other hand, not
Big win yesterday.
Hey, yeah, they didn't get swept. It's a start. It's a start.
Yeah, he said sweep incoming when we recorded the other day. Yeah, they're down 2-0 in the series. I'm like, oh, boy.
You can always count on the ace, Zack Wheeler.
Yeah.
To keep us in things.
He was fantastic. I mean, he has transformed himself into one of the best pitchers in baseball.
Yes. Before we're getting ahead of ourselves here, Kevin. Before we jump ahead and start talking about how great Zack Wheeler is, let's look at the whole series. So obviously they played Boston this weekend, coming off a series L to Miami. So this was a big one here because Boston, they've been playing some good baseball. It was at home. You were going to have Nola and Wheeler pitch in the same series. So, a couple of weeks ago, we'd be looking at this like, all right, 2 or 3, lock it in. Wasn't the case. They lost the first 2 games. Game 1 was an ugly one. Nola took the mound. They ended up losing 11-3. Nola got rocked for the 5th time in a row. His ERA over the last 5 games is now north of 5. Kevin, you were at the ballpark, correct?
Yes.
What were the takeaways from that kind of atrocity?
It was so bad that we kind of were just like mingling amongst ourselves. It got to that point. It got so bad that we kind of were just hanging out.
It's actually, I think one of the worst things that can happen to a sports team is when the fans start to get like disinterested almost, and they're just like, this game sucks.
It was more of like, it was Friday night. The ballpark was pretty packed out. Drinks were flowing a bit. It was before you could blink in the 5th or 6th inning, it was like 9-3. It was kind of like, okay, it's going to be one of those games. It's always a good time going over there. But yeah, it was more of a whatever kind of approach. Felt like that all weekend, actually. Just because it felt like the Phillies were disinterested,
Yeah, no, and I think that's correct. And, I wasn't there. I was watching on television, but it did just kind of seem like the players were just like, we're getting blown out tonight. And it's
just going through emotions.
Yeah, I'm like, against Boston, it was Friday night. Is that really what we're doing here with Nola on the mound? And, that's the first player we got to get to. Look, a lot went wrong for the Phillies this weekend. A lot went wrong on Friday night. But Aaron Nola, Kevin, 5 innings. He gave up 7 hits. 4 earned runs, a walk, 5 runs ended up crossing the board. Nola's ERA on the season is up to a 3.94. I led off the show. His ERA in his last 6 starts is north of 5. Kevin, this isn't even about ace versus not an ace anymore. It's like, can Nola even be an above average pitcher for them moving forward at the moment? Like, can he be relied upon to consistently get you wins? Because as of late, he's been putting them in holes more often than not.
I just think too, and we discussed this with Wheeler, going the opposite way. When Nola's not missing bats, he's relying on his defense, and his defense just isn't good. Like, his FIP is 2.98. It's the best of his career. So it's he's given up the long ball, which has really hurt him. But has he really been as bad as it's looked? I mean, Wheeler just goes down and mows guys down. So he's not relying on his defense the same way that Aaron Nola does. Some days Nola will go out there and strike out 10, 11 guys, but sometimes he's really relying on his defense, who's probably the worst in baseball, and they've made him look even worse than he's already been. And that's not saying he's been great, because he hasn't been. But, I mean, his 2.98 FIP, which we've leaned on a couple times on this show, would indicate he really hasn't been that bad.
I actually think that's a really good point, because you look at Zach Eflin, it's a very similar story where his FIP and ERA discrepancy is like one of the highest in baseball.
Yep.
So you have 2 pitchers in Nola and Eflin who their velocity is not the highest.
Yeah.
It sits in that 94, 95 on a good day range, which is fine. But a lot of movement, lot of late break, a lot of stuff to their curveball and their slider and their sinker, whatever the case may be.
They're just inducing that weak contact, man. I mean, that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and then guys aren't catching the ball, right? It's like crazy.
We saw it yesterday. Excuse me. First batter of the game hit a bloop single to right. Like, the expected batting average on that ball was like 230. It's just like those kind of balls are falling in on the Phillies.
And that kind of brings me to my conclusion is we've talked about it multiple times. This season is what do you care about more, the process or the result? And like you look at the result of Nolan, his ERA, and you're like, oh, he's been bad. And you look at the process, it's fine. Like he's gonna settle in. I think it is a wake up call to
For sure.
the front office to maybe get him players who can field ground balls up the middle of the infield. Like that's pretty important. Just seeing Ronald Torreyes like make a half decent play once in a while this weekend was like, oh, okay, someone can catch a ball. That's fantastic. It's been frustrating with Nola because this was a guy who we all wanted to see. Yeah,
on this guy.
We wanted to see him in the Cy Young conversation. We wanted him to shut down any talk of him not being an ace or whatever you want to go with. And obviously, he's not been great. I wouldn't go as far as to say he's bad. I've seen some people call him a number 3 or trade him or any of that. And that's not the case. He's still one of the better pitchers in the National League and the MLB for that case. But things. What's up?
He's no Zack Wheeler.
He's no Zack Wheeler, that's for sure. But he definitely has to tighten things up if this team wants to be competitive.
Yeah. Oh, there's no question. Because we're counting on him. I mean, we're going in the series, and you have Nolan Wheeler pitching 2 out of 3 games. You should win that series. I don't care if it is the Boston Red Sox, who are a damn good team. You should win that series. And they weren't even in 2 of the games, David. I guess they were in Saturday, where they lost 4-3. But I mean, they found themselves in the hole immediately again. So it's just a recurring theme with this team right now. It was big to get a win yesterday. Hopefully they can carry that momentum because luckily the division really hasn't pulled away or anything yet, but somebody's going to. So the Phillies got to get it together as sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and you're starting to finally see some life from Atlanta.
Yeah, they sweep this weekend, right?
Yeah, and Ronald
Pittsburgh. It was Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, we lost to Colorado, so
I know. I'm saying,
Acuna's leading the league in home runs at the moment, so he's starting to find his groove. Freddie Freeman's going to wake up. You're assuming they're going to try to figure out their rotation as the deadline gets closer. So, look, still wide open, but the pressure's starting to get there.
We're tied with the Phillies right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's crazy to look at the whole division as a whole. Because even the Nationals in last place, they're only 2.5 games out. Like, everybody's still right there. It's crazy to think, though. I was just thinking this when I had the banner up. I can't believe we're 47 games in, David.
It's flying by.
Yeah, it's insane. It's truly insane. Look, I'll pop it up again. We're 47 games into the season. That's pretty amazing.
Like, we're very close to mid-season here. Like, it's what? 35 games away.
We're getting into the summer. Yeah, we're getting into June here. Not complaining. Love me some baseball. So
and still a lot of game left to be played. But all right, Kevin, I want to fast forward to Game 2 on Saturday, which was a frustrating one. I think we got to first talk about Spencer Howard was making his first start of the season. Kevin, he looked great early on. Fastball was moving. He was mowing down batters. It looked like the Spencer Howard we have been advertised for the last couple of years, the guy who was throwing no hitters down in Double-A, and we're like, all right, like number 4 starter Spencer Howard, let's ride. And then the third inning rolls around and
he fell apart.
Yeah, the velocity just died, and he went from 97 to 93. Then some pitches were coming in at like 91, and you're just like, okay, here we go. He starts, pitching around batters, going after the corners. Game fell apart. And look, at the end of the day, Spencer, he gave us 3 innings. He only allowed 2 runs across. He struck out 5. It's not the worst, but he walked 4 batters.
Yeah.
The control was all over the place. The velocity was way down, and it definitely wasn't a start that we all left feeling super great about.
Look, I'm going to be very optimistic. But from what I've seen in the 2 years we've had Spencer Howard here, he's only pitched in 10 games, 31 innings. I haven't seen anything, really. I've not been impressed. He looks like a reliever to me.
So this is fun because the roles get to be reversed. I'm still rather high on Spencer. Now, we talked about it in the offseason. Spencer being a really good reliever, like that's still a weapon.
Yep.
Josh
That's what
Hader
I think he's going to inevitably be. I mean, he just doesn't appear to be a starting pitcher.
Yeah, look, I mean, Josh Hader is one of the most valuable pitchers in baseball every single season because he comes in and he lights out for 2 innings. Like, that's huge. Is that what you want out of your number 1 pitching prospect? Probably not.
No.
With that said, it's not uncommon for starters who operate with a lot of velocity to come in and be a long man for the first couple of years, and then as they get stronger, as they get older, make that jump to the rotation. Obviously,
Yep.
with Howard, there's more pressure on him because the team's trying to compete.
Yeah,
Yesterday, like,
it's
they
not
want to
really
win
an
right
ideal
now.
spot. Yeah.
So with Spence, I agree. I think at the moment he'd probably be a reliever. Now, again, the Phillies have to make the decision. Do you want to use him as a reliever now and in 2022 and potentially even 2023? Or do you want to continue to work him up as a starter to where he hopefully is in your rotation maybe in 2 years, which would suck, but it might be what's best for him long term. Because right now it's just a strength thing. He's just not strong enough. His stamina is not high enough. And that's something you really can only address in the offseason. It's not like you can touch his mechanics to make him throw the ball harder as the game moves on.
No, yeah. It makes me kind of want to pivot real quick to just another young pitching prospect, Adonis Medina, David. It's been spectacular in AAA. He's through 4 starts, 3.5 ERAs, 3-0, a whip of 1 flat. I mean, how much longer until we see this guy up here?
I mean, we've been talking about this for what, 9 months now?
Banging the table for Adonis Medina. I mean, he's starting to really show flashes down there. I mean, he's a starting pitcher. He has proven he can throw a little bit more innings. I just don't see, he has 3 innings in the minor leagues where he's thrown over 100, or 3 seasons where he threw over 100 innings. I don't see why he's not here.
Well, and the crazy thing with Medina is he made an MLB appearance last year and he went 4 innings. And granted, it wasn't like it was 4 lights out innings, but a lot of strikeouts.
He settled in. You could tell that he was nervous in the beginning.
A lot of weak contact. And if I remember correctly, I think there was a play at first base where it might have been Miller or even Jay Bruce that it should have been fielded and it wasn't, and 2 runs scored and they probably should have been unearned. But it was 4 innings in a high leverage spot for Medina. So yeah, I totally agree. It looks like we're ending, nearing the end of the road with both Matt Moore and Chase Anderson. So if you need another arm up there to piggyback with a Vince Velasquez or even a Spencer Howard, imagine trotting out Spencer Howard and Adonis Medina in the same game. That'd be so fun, just from a fan perspective.
It'd be fun until they started getting bashed, and then we're hanging our head
then we're like, go trade for somebody, right?
But yeah, I mean, Medina's career ERA in the minor leagues is 3.59. He's been effective. I would love to see him up here. What do you got to lose? And it's not like he's a nobody. This is a guy who was a top 100 prospect at one point in time.
No, I'm actually really glad you brought this up. I totally forgot that because he threw 5 perfect innings the other day. And they yanked him, which I hate. They took him out because they're like, oh, the pitch count. I was like, let him finish the damn perfect game. But no, and this kind of was getting into something I wanted to talk about a little bit later in the show, but we'll touch on it now, is kind of using this season, especially early in the year, because like you said before, we're only 40-something games into the season. Using this time where it's not like we're viewed as a contender around baseball at the moment.
No.
Using this time to maybe start to gauge who could be a contributor in 2022. I'm glad they brought up Spencer Howard. I'd like to see Medina. I'd like to see Ranger Suarez continue to get some at-bats. Some other guys down in AAA, AA, maybe giving them a couple appearances just to see, all right, is this guy somebody we can use in 2022, or should we look to fill that position with someone else? Because look, if Medina comes up and he gives you 15 quality starts this season, right? You're going into 2022 with 1 less roster need because now
you're all right, he's in the rotation. Yeah, it would be one of those things. Okay, he's in.
Absolutely. I mean, it's either that or you keep trotting out Chase Anderson, Matt Moore, the Vince Velasquez, guys who probably aren't going to be on the roster next year.
Yeah. I mean, we saw it with when Eflin and Pivetta and those guys were coming up. They pitched well enough to where the team was like, all right, they're going to be a rotation arm for us moving forward. Obviously, didn't work for Pivetta here. He's been pretty good in Boston. Tired of hearing the fans crying about that because it wasn't going to work here. It just wasn't going to work. It sucks that he's doing well in Boston, but I'm in firm belief that wasn't going to work. He needed a change of scenery.
Sometimes that's just how it goes.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like Zack Wheeler, another prime example. Like, look how good he's been. He was always good with the Mets, but he's taking his game to a different level with the Phillies. So some guys just move on and they find it. But anyway, game 3 yesterday. Zack Wheeler. It's a good segue. Absolutely dominant. Absolutely dominant, David. And I am comfortable with saying not only is he the ace of the Philly staff, but he's one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like there's no debate here anymore.
No.
And regardless of what your definition of an ace is, some people view an ace as just the best starter on a team-specific staff, where you got to be a top 15, top 10 pitcher in baseball. Like
he's a legitimate ace. He's in both of those categories.
He hits all the categories, and depending on where you look, whether it's FanGraphs or Baseball Reference, his pitching WAR is top 3 across baseball. He's right up there with the Garrett Coles of the world, the Jacob deGroms of the world. Like, he's right there. He's been sensational. He's been dominant. Kevin, he's been dominant since he signed with the Phillies. He's been the team's best starter, potentially their best player since the moment he signed. He's just been exceptional. We talk about it pretty much every time we watch him start, just his ability to command and locate the fastball at 99 and 100 throughout the entire game. It doesn't matter if you're missing your spots. When you're throwing that hard in the 7th inning, in the 8th inning, guys just aren't going to touch it.
He just goes after you too. Like, he's not nibbling around the plate. He's just coming right after you with his gas, and he's just like, hit it. Go right ahead, try to hit it. Yeah, he's remarkable, man. Blessed to have him here. We really are.
Yeah, that's why I put out a tweet yesterday, and I pulled it up right now. It's Zack Wheeler's made 21 starts since signing for the Phillies, 2.65 ERA during those 21 starts, and that's including the juiced ball era. That was last season where balls were just flying off.
Everybody was homering. Yep.
2.65, Kevin. That's absurd.
And we still get to watch him for a few more years, and anytime he's on the mound, I feel pretty good that the Phillies are going to win that ball game.
Absolutely. All right. So real quick, I want to touch on Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
Because this was a player that I've been universally praising all season long. And finally, he had a bad couple of games this past weekend, specifically game 2. He went 0 for 5, 3 strikeouts. I want to say he left 6 on base. It was bad. And the cries for Harper to be, heavily scrutinized all over Twitter, all over social media, and rightfully so. Look, he was bad, and then he got Sunday off, and they won, so it didn't really matter. Kevin, and this was something I brought up a few episodes back. This is who Bryce is. This is what he does. He's going to have months where he hits 365, and he looks like Barry Bonds 2.0. And then he's going to have some stretches where he's not as good, and he's going to strike out a lot, and the walks are going to go down, and he's not going to be hitting as many home runs. That's who he is. I think the issue that we're seeing now is the team did a bad job of capitalizing on Harper when he was at his the hottest of hot streaks. And now he's cooled off a little bit. It doesn't help that JT's injured as well. And now everyone's looking around like, all right, who's going to drive the runs in? We have nobody. It's all Bryce Harper's fault. And again, this isn't making excuses for Bryce. He's got to be a little bit better. He was bad this week. But he's still, he's still hitting north of 270. He's still got one of the highest OPSs in baseball. I do think there's a point to saying this is who Bryce is. This is what he does. But when he heats back up, this team has to be ready to rattle off 9 of 10, 8 of 12, whatever the case may be. They got to be a little more prepared to take advantage of when their best player is looking like an MVP.
Well, David, since he got hit in the face by the Cardinals, he's slashing 211, 318, 316. So it's 634 OPS. He has 1 homer, 3 RBIs, and he has 26 strikeouts and 57 at-bats. You got to wonder how much that's weighing on him as well. I know that he walked away and he was fine, but psychologically, he took a 99-mile-an-hour fastball to the face or whatever it was. Can't be easy to just bounce back, step in the box, and just be ready to go. So maybe that's having lingering effects as well, because it's been ever since that moment he hasn't been as good.
Yeah, I mean, we were always amazed that he didn't have a severe concussion or a broken jaw or something, and he walked away and he came back. It absolutely took him out of his groove, right? His first couple at bats, he clearly wasn't okay. Does he need an IL stint to maybe get that right? Maybe get his face rechecked on, do some more concussion tests? Because you're right, since that since that fastball to the dome, he's not looked like the same player. And again, that could be injury related. It could just be psychologically related.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
Yeah, and look, if he needed an IL stint, I would have hoped that they would have already done it by now. But their management of the injured list has been ridiculous. So, I mean, we had Real Muto and Didi just riding the bench for a week before we were like, you know what? They need to go on the injured list. And it's like, why the hell weren't they on the injured list to begin with? We played a game in Toronto or in Dunedin, if you want to go it that way. They didn't have any bench players. Like, it's been absolutely insane, their management of the injured list. And I was preaching it on this show, and I know you are too on Twitter. Why wasn't Real Muto on the IL? Oh, yeah, we think he can avoid it. We think he can avoid it. 5 or 6 days later, they're like, yeah, he's on the IL, retroactive to the 15th. And it's like, what are we doing? You didn't know that he needed an IL stint then? Like, it just doesn't make any sense, man.
What's really confusing is you have Dave Dombrowski and Joe Girardi running the baseball team, and maybe it's someone in the medical staff giving them incorrect information, but it's like you have two veterans of the sport running the team. How are they not better in assessing, oh, this guy needs to go on the IL versus this guy doesn't need to go on the IL?
It's insane. And it goes back to, if we can say it, and this seems to happen a lot with this baseball team. If we can say it, why can't they say it? Because this isn't the first instance, and it's not even just injured list related, where we've seen it and we're like, what are they doing? And then they finally do what we think they should do. And it's like, well, what the hell took so long? Why are you making these decisions if you can't see what's blatantly right in your face?
I don't know. I don't have an answer. I really don't. All right. So real quick before we get into our Philly of the Week award.
Yep.
Kevin, I want to talk about the kind of discourse that's been happening on Twitter in regards to selling versus buying at the trade deadline. And although it feels like it's a ways away, we're creeping up on the trade deadline and moves are going to start to be made. And you see a lot of people every time the team loses, right? And they're like, trade everybody, trade JT, trade Zack Wheeler, trade Nola. That's not going to happen. This team has doubled down on the idea that they're ready to contend right now, whether that's a correct or incorrect assessment. That's where they're at. They spend too much money. Bryce Harper, JT, Zack Wheeler, all huge contracts. It's just what they're doing. Kevin, what I've started to, and I've texted you about it, I've tweeted about it a few times. I don't think they should sell, but I don't really think they should buy. I think they should retool. And I'm going to use the Sixers as an example just because they're fresh in everybody's mind. And I think it's way harder to build a baseball team than it is to build a basketball team.
Yep.
Throwing that out there. But just a good example where the Sixers, they went into this past season coming off a first-round exit. They'd already spent a lot of money. Wasn't looking good. They changed up the coaching staff. And it's not like they traded Al Horford and Josh Richardson for draft picks. They traded them for different players who better fit around their core pieces. And as we're seeing right now, it worked out pretty well for them. They were the top seed in basketball. And again, it's not that simple in baseball, but I think you could look at your team and be like, all right, who on this team isn't going to be around in 2022 or 2023 when our window really opens up, when they're able to have a full off season of targeting a Trevor Story, targeting added pitching depth, making bigger trades now that Dombrowski's had a full season to evaluate the team. You look at a guy like Hector Neris, Vince Velasquez, Archie Bradley, whomever. If you can, Gene Segura, I throw him out there just because he's on so much money. If you can swap these guys for other major league talent who may be better fit or just lower the cost of the team a little bit, so Dombrowski has more flexibility to get MVP caliber players in the offseason. If you can do that at the trade deadline, Kevin, I would do it 100%.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree, and it all depends on where they're at in the standings. And I know that you don't totally agree with this point, but let's say they're a game and a half out at the deadline. Man, this team's been in the season before it. Yeah, depend on, because you're right. Some of these guys are going to be gone anyway, you would assume, in the offseason. So if they can trade Gene and get a guy who can start for them this year, as well as a bench player who can help them right now, okay, then that's a different conversation. But I know you didn't say this, and I know you're against it, but I'm not trading for younger guys who are just Yeah, we're looking to the future because it's just we've been doing this for this. This is year number 10. It's been going on too long. That's why I'm kind of in the belief of if you're there, you got to go for it.
Yeah, and then that's where we agree. I don't think they should be hunting prospects. And I understand the farm system sucks and they need added depth down in the minor leagues. We've talked about that before, that we had hoped Dombrowski would do a better job of bringing in some AAA, some AA guys just to round out the organizational depth, and he hasn't really done it. I agree. You can't trade guys on your active roster for prospects right now. It's not helpful. But like you mentioned, if you can maybe flip a guy like Gene Segura for a comparable second baseman, or even just open that spot up for a Maton while bringing in a, fifth starter, or even just like a sixth starter that you can rely upon if somebody gets hurt moving forward. I would definitely look into it. Again, it just kind of depends if there's offers out there. A lot of this rests on if other teams even value some of the guys on the Phillies, because at the moment, a lot of them are underperforming. Like we want to trade Archie Bradley because he hasn't been great, but I don't know why other teams would look at him and be like, oh yeah, he's great. He's sucked all year, right?
Yep. Yeah, he's been pretty bad. I'm still holding out hope because he just came off the injured list. We'll see how it goes. But I think he's given up a run in every outing he's appeared in. So it hasn't been great so far for Archie.
Yeah, and again, he spent a lot of time on the injured list. You're kind of hoping that he settles in, but he's supposedly healthy, so we're kind of hoping more out of our highest paid reliever.
Yep. I couldn't agree more.
Okay. With that said, Kevin, time for our weekly segment.
Philly
of the week. Most disappointing Philly of the week.
Yep.
We need a better name for that, by the way.
I know. We gotta. I mean, if the listeners want to chime in and maybe give us a segment name, nice, because we need something catchy.
Yeah, outside of just like, this guy sucks award.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially what it is.
Yeah,
this guy has been awful.
Okay, Kevin, Philly of the week. Who's your guy? I'm
doubling up. I'm gonna go with Odubel Herrera again because he's consistently been their best offensive player. For the week, Herrera hit 412, 522 on base, 588 slug. He didn't go deep, but David, since beginning the season, 0 for 15. Odubel Herrera is hitting 333, 23 for 69, OPS over 900. He's been one of their best players. And I know people don't want to hear that, but I mean, he's patched the hole in center field. They don't have a hole there anymore. He deserved to be moved up in the lineup, which he has been the last couple of days. I think he should stay at number 2 because he's stealing bases now too. He brings a different element of energy to this lineup that is contagious. And I think he's been one of their best players for the month of May, which would include this past week. So 2 weeks in a row now, Odubel Herrera is my Philly of the week.
Yeah, and Odubel likes to work walks too, which is important.
He's on base for the year is 366, man. He's hitting 284 on the year now.
He's man, what a surprise he's turned out to be. And
yeah, he's been damn good.
I don't know what to do with him because you're right.
He's still pretty young.
Yeah, and he's not Kevin. He's not only patched the hole in center field. He's one of the better center fielders in like baseball at the moment.
He's become a strength. Yep.
Do you start looking at an extension? Question mark.
Well, they got him under. They got a team option for 22 and 23.
But isn't it big?
I think it's $10 million a year.
You can't do that.
Yeah, but I mean, is he going to be like, yeah, I'll extend to give me less money? That's fine.
I mean, maybe he's worried about getting a job with another team after his suspension.
Well, the big thing with him too, David, is his strikeout rate's the lowest of his career. His walk rate's the highest. His hard hit percentage is the highest. He's been going opposite field, highest of his career. He's up to 30% of his hits are going, 31% actually, are going to left. Mm-hmm. Like he's beating the shift. And you know what it is? He's not trying to hit home runs. And that's the issue he ran into in 18 and 19, where he's just swinging for the fences all the time. He's back to the player he was in 16 and 17, where he's just looking for base hits. And he celebrates those hits. And I guess it's probably because he realizes he almost lost everything. Mm-hmm. And now he's just out there playing the game, and he's just thrilled to be producing. Yeah, man. He really not much that can be said. His home run rate is second lowest of his career, but everything else is through the roof.
It's a weird situation
Yeah.
because he's been genuinely fantastic, but there's so much more that goes into keeping him on the team next year. But as of right now, he's much deserved 2 weeks in a row on the Philly of the Week list.
Yep.
All right, Kevin, I got a name for you.
Okay.
And I thought you were going to pick Zack Wheeler, so I wasn't going to pick Zack Wheeler. I'm still not going to pick Zack Wheeler.
Fair
I'm
enough.
not going to do it.
It'd be too easy.
It's too easy. Kevin, my guy, Ronald Torres.
Here we
Ronnie.
go. Love
He's been fantastic
Ronnie
since
the
coming off
Rat.
the IL. His last 7 games, he's 7 for 14 at the plate.
Yep.
2 RBIs, on base percentage of .563, slug of .571. His OPS on the season is .944. Granted, he's only had like 20 at bats, but
yeah.
Kevin, there was a point on I think it was Saturday where he made a diving stop at shortstop, and I was like, Ronald Torres might be our best like defensive shortstop.
He might be the best defensive infielder they have.
He probably is.
Yeah.
So it's just hilarious because this was a guy we hated that he made the roster. Once spring training was over, and we're like, what are we doing? This guy is just a Joe Girardi favorite, and clearly Joe knew something we didn't. I mean, this is why he's the manager and we're the podcast hosts, because Torres has come in and he's given him a spark here.
He has, yeah, and he's not going anywhere either. Girardi loves him. He's going to be on the roster.
Yeah, and he's going to keep starting games because Girardi likes him that much, which is neither here nor there. Okay, most disappointing Philly of the week, non-Philly of the week, worst Philly of the week, whatever you want to call it. We'll figure that out for next episode. Yeah. Kevin, who is your name?
Okay. Excuse me. And people are probably not going to like this because for whatever reason, people like this player. It's Andrew Knapp. Hit 118 on the week, David. 211 on base, 118 slug. He went 2 for 17. Where did this narrative come from, David, that he could be a starting catcher in baseball? Where did this come from? He stinks, dude.
Like, and he's a decent game caller. I will give him that.
Yeah,
when he calls game, when he calls a game, the ERA like across the board is pretty low. But he's not like he's awful.
His WAR on the year is minus 0.7. He's 11 for 65 with a 169 average. His OPS only 451. I mean, this guy's not a starter. So like I saw someone pitch it yesterday that they could look to move him like an Austin Nola was moved.
Yeah, Austin and they Nola got prospects was hitting like 300 last year when he got
and traded. He can play multiple positions. He's not just a catcher.
Yeah.
Andrew Knapp is one of, I don't know, what is there, 6? Let's say there's 60 catchers in the bigs. Is he 55th? 54th, 55th, maybe? So this narrative that he can be a starter, I think, is insane.
I'm totally with you. And this is a position I think is an underrated need for the Phillies because JT, the issue with JT, right, and we're nitpicking here because he's the best catcher in baseball by a landslide. He deserved every penny he got this past offseason. The issue with JT being a catcher is that he's also their cleanup hitter. And catchers, as we know, they cannot play every day. They just can't do it. They give you, every 5 games out of every 7 days. That's just the nature of the position. So your backup catcher needs to be at least comparable at the plate because you can't just keep dropping your cleanup hitter twice a week and expecting to be competitive in those games. And we've seen it. And granted, Knapp has been the one thing he's done good this year outside of his game calling he's been relatively clutch with runners in scoring position, which is.
And I think that's why people like him.
Yeah, it's inflating his production.
Yeah, they see those hits and they're like, oh, he's pretty good. It's the same thing with Didi, where it's those big. He'll hit a big 3-run homer, but he's hitting like 212 on the year. Yeah.
No. I've seen the same sentiment amongst Phillies Twitter of Andrew Knapp could be a starter on all 20, all other 30 teams in baseball. Like, no.
He's a fringe roster player.
Yeah.
And look, he does call a great game, and the pitchers love him. So, yeah, there's definitely something to that. But here's the thing: you can't designate a hitter for your catcher. So, look, he's just not a good offensive player. And sadly, that's half of the game. So,
it is right. Yeah, no, I agree. If you could find a way to upgrade that position in the offseason, it's something I would look into. Just
Yeah,
because.
because I mean, his career WAR, David. This is his 5th year. It's 0.1.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he's really done nothing.
Yeah, no, and again, I think it's the moments, it's the small moments where he gets a big hit and expectations are so low that
Yeah,
if he just puts the ball in play, everyone's like, oh, like yeah, he could probably start. It's just like, I
yeah.
don't know
It's
about
like,
that.
no.
I don't know
Yeah,
about
and then
that.
he almost hit that walk-off homer the other night.
Yeah, he's put like a few to the warning track as of late,
Yeah.
and they're just not getting out. And look, we already play in a small ballpark. I'm not giving him props for putting one to the warning track in left field. I'm not doing that. All right, Kevin, my name, who has unfortunately kind of become a routine selection on this list, is it's Alec Bohm.
Mm,
And again, I thought
yeah.
I thought about going with Aaron Nola. We already kind of talked about him, so I'm going to go with Alec Bohm here. Last 7 games, 231 average, 259 on base percentage, 269 slugging percentage. He struck out 10 times this past week while only walking once. I mean, Kevin, he is completely lost at the plate.
It's not even just at the plate, man. He's just lost in general. And in the same breath, it seems to be very popular with Phillies fans where we don't want to criticize anybody. Like, look, I believe in Bohm long term, but he has been one of the worst players in baseball this year. He has been awful. There's nothing wrong with saying that because it's the truth. What's his WAR, David? I think it's negative like 1.5 or something.
Are you
Yeah,
pulling it up? Yeah,
negative 1.5. Yeah, that's insane.
it's
Like
not great.
he's been bad, man. And we saw it yesterday. I know you were with the Sixers. You had a lot of stuff going on with them. Did you see the end of the ball game yesterday?
I
Did
saw
you see
the dropped catch in foul territory. Is that what you're talking about?
what's that?
I don't know, man.
Oh, it was so embarrassing, man. I just like shook my head. I'm like, unbelievable. And you know, Bradley's like, really, dude? Now I got to throw another pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a big reason, David, why we are where we're at because we've gotten nothing out of him.
Absolutely. I mean, and this was a guy who all off season long, we were like, he's going to be good.
Yep.
100%. His bat skills are too good. Who cares about the defense? He'll improve. But he's too good of a hitter. He's too much of a professional at the plate. Like, he's going to be good. He's going to be batting cleanup by the end of the season. And like, his defense has somehow been worse than it was last year, like way worse. And his offense has just it's degraded down to nothing. Where most nights I would prefer Brad Miller to be over there. And again, this goes back to the conversation of me criticizing Bohm. Does not mean I'm out on him. Does not mean I want him cut. It does not
Exactly.
mean I want him traded. It just means as of late he's holding the team back. And again, it's kind of the same situation of Spencer Howard. Is maybe the expectations are too high on these guys because they're being asked to come in and contribute on a playoff team in year one. Because this is Alec Bohm's rookie season. But it's been really bad. And I see a lot of people talk about how, oh, well, pitchers have adjusted to Bohm. He's got to adjust back. Kevin, maybe I'm clueless, but I just feel like pitchers are throwing fastballs at him and he's not making contact.
Yeah, and he has 8 errors on the year, and his defensive WAR is -1. So it's just been really bad. I'm really, really in on the idea of just get to the offseason, stick his ass in left field, work all offseason on it, and we're just going to hide you out there.
Yeah, assuming we don't get the designated hitter.
Yeah.
Which, geez, this team needs bad because Rhys Hoskins ain't any better over at first base defensively.
Hey, he finally hit a home run. It only took
Yeah.
him like 98 plate appearances. He's supposed to be a power hitter.
Jeez. Oh, yeah, we didn't even talk about Rhys this episode. We'll save that
like
for after the Marlins series.
1/7 of his at-bats this year. It took him to hit a home run. You can see where I'm getting to with this team too, David. I'm starting to get pretty upset with them.
This is a new version of Kevin here on the
because I want them to win, dude, and it's there for the taking, and they're not doing it. I mean, they're a game and a half out, like, and they probably should be in first place if they just didn't blow 6 effing leads. Excuse me, watch my language. I'm not going to go that far, and some of the guys, just played the game the right way.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I mean, if so much of this is bigger issues, right? You look at like the organizational depth, the pitching staff, the defense, but there's still
Yeah.
kind of a semblance of how many just dumb games has this team lost? Whether it's wasting a good start, wasting a good offensive performance from a player, wasting a few good defensive plays when we finally get them and they still manage to lose the game, blowing a save, whatever the case may be, stupid decisions with the injury list where Joe Girardi isn't even given a bench to work with.
Yep.
And there's just been so many games like that, whether it's losing to the Rockies, dropping a game to the Nats against Patrick Corbin, like so many games like this where it's just like, man, if this team would just cut out all that nonsense, they could be sitting here with a healthy lead in first place. And then I'd be sitting here agreeing with you, like, hey, let's go all in. Let's buy, bring in as many players as possible. But unfortunately, we're below 500 with a 4-game series up against the Marlins, which, man, if they lose this series too, like the fan base is going to be in a rough spot.
Nah, we're sweeping 4 games.
Sweeping, okay.
27 and 24 at the end. Then we'll be feeling a little bit better.
I'd be feeling great at 27. I'd be feeling great.
We'd be feeling blessed to be, because I honestly feel blessed that they're not, 18 and 30 or something,
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
let's try to get it figured out here. Luckily, the division stinks.
Yeah, that's so big. If this division was competent,
if they were in an average division, they'd be buried in the standings now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, Kevin, any other final points you wanted to get to?
Nah, that's it. All the times where I'm like, it's early, we got time. Clock's ticking, man. We're almost a third of the way done now, so would like to see some urgency.
Yeah, we've gotten past that 40-game threshold where that's typically when you can start evaluating a team.
It's not to say, though, that there isn't time, because there is, but each day that goes by, you're losing it. So
yeah, and like in that same breath, there's time for the Mets to get better. There's time for the Braves to figure it out, right? Like it's all. I mean, look, the Marlins could come and knock us off again this week, and then they're ahead of us in the standings. So yeah,
they're only a half game back. Yeah,
it's right there. But okay, with that said, we're gonna wrap this up this morning. If you're not already subscribed to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Anchor, make sure to do that. Also, check out our YouTube channel. Kevin does a ton of work making our video look all pretty. So definitely go over there and check out the videos. Toss us a subscribe if you feel so inclined to. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. Every single one of those links will be down in the description. Check those out. With that said, we will be back on Thursday, Friday.
1 of the 2 days.
Later in the week after the Marlins series. Hopefully it's a good one. I'm not going to say they're going to sweep because I've done that the last 3 episodes and they've lost all 3. So I'm just going to say hopefully it's a good series. Hopefully everybody has fun, Kevin.
Yeah, let's not lose the series.
All right, with that said, we're the Bullpen Blues podcast, and we'll catch you on a couple of days.
Go Phils.